Hi, everyone. It's the Catholic CEO, Henry Katarna. We're doing our Exemplary Catholic Leaders series. And so today I'm joined by Grant Crowell, who is the founder of the Urban Foresters, a very interesting business. And so we're going to talk with Grant about a few things about his Catholic faith journey and about his business and how he runs it according to Catholic principles and some things like that. So we'll plunge right into it. Grant, welcome to this show today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Nice to have you. And so let's begin right away by our audience will be interested to know, what's your story of the faith? Where did you come from? How's it going? Where did it go? What's your faith journey like?
Yeah. Okay. So I was baptized when I don't remember, as a little baby, and that's when I came into the church. And both my folks were faithful Catholics, and we went to Mass every Sunday. I don't ever remember a time. I do remember one funny story when we were a kid where we didn't make it to Sunday Mass, and we were at Garner State Park. And this was back before masstimes.org. And, no telling if the recording at the church was accurate, or, we're out in the country, down by the Frio River. And my family went, and my dad must have, he either got it wrong or the church had it wrong. So we show up at, this tiny little church, and there's nobody there. We missed it. Right. And so, my dad, he showed a good leadership. He said, well, we missed Mass. Let's go back to the cabin. And he just opened his Bible and did a little, prayer with the whole family. I was probably 8, but I remember that. So, yeah,
that's great.
Sunday Mass was always part of the Crowell family. And an interesting, I don't know how long you want to hear about my faith journey. I could stop there.
Oh, I want to hear all about it.
Okay.
People are very interested. No,
I've been a Catholic my whole life. Yeah, so that was like kind of growing up. And when I was about 12, we moved from Spring, which is north of Houston, down into Fort Bend County, which is southwest of Houston. And, in that moving phase, right, the family's trying to figure out, where are we going to go to Mass? I get it. You probably should go to Mass, the closest church, but when you're 12, you just do what your parents tell you to do.
Right.
And
right.
So
as an obedient son.
Yes, we kind of ended up settling out as a family at St. Teresa's in Sugar Land. But that was nowhere. It really wasn't near my home. It was close. It was a 20-minute drive, but we passed up a few Catholic churches to get there. And it was great parish. My parents liked it. That was the main thing. But an interesting, I don't know if other kids maybe have had this experience, but if you go to Mass where your friends at school don't go, if you go to Mass and you see all these kids, but you don't know them, and if you're not a really outgoing kid, I never really met any other Catholics. That might sound strange, but I had my best friend in high school was a Methodist guy, and I kind of ran around in high school in a Christian crowd, but no one was Catholic. And like a lot of, I've kind of talked about this with some other people, a lot of young folk, or I guess I'm not young anymore, 41, but a lot of folks that grew up in the 80s and 90s, I didn't have much of a Catholic identity. I kind of I would have probably told you in my high school years, that's all the same, So it's Protestant, whatever, we all love Jesus, and I would have just kind of moved on.
Yes.
And I just didn't, and I'm not throwing stones at anybody. I mean, I'm sure the pastors of the parish were doing a good job, and I just, for whatever reason, I didn't pick that up, that there was something special about being Catholic. And so I, graduated high school, and I went off to Texas A&M, where I wanted to go to college. And like also so many young people, you kind of get into college and you start wondering, and
yes,
I guess I'm not going to march down to Mass with my folks. They're not here. And so, I kind of out of habit, which is good, I just kept going to mass, kept going to mass at St. Mary's there in College Station, which is a phenomenal place. But I still had this doubt, I guess, or this questioning about Catholicism. I didn't get it. It seemed, at the time, I would have said it seems stuffy, or some other not essential thing, but I would have critiqued.
Yes.
And I would have made critiques of the liturgy, or even the people who went to the St. Mary's Center. For whatever reason, I was just kind of an outsider. And so I went to I got invited to go to a Bible study on campus there at Texas A&M, but it was given by a Bible church. They had an on-campus Bible study there. And so I went to that, and of course they were very, very friendly and welcoming, and I kind of got attached to that group of people, and kind of journeyed through my freshman year. Had a crazy freshman year. The Texas A&M bonfire, if you've ever heard of that, it fell when I was a freshman, and I was really involved in bonfire. Some people I knew died, and it was for a 19-year-old kid, it was pretty traumatic. Just had a rough time. I didn't quite, I was a big fish, or a small fish in a big pond, and my grades suffered. And so I got back my sophomore year and kind of wanted to hook back up with those same Bible study friends that I kind of had that connection with. But now the Bible study was not on campus. It was at their church. And so I started kind of going to the Bible study at Grace Bible Church there in College Station. And they had this growth group, and it was really great small group type discipleship. But here's where the story turns Catholic again. And all this time I was continuing to attend Sunday Mass. Like I never stopped going to Mass, which will become relevant in the story here. So one night, where it's one of the Bible study nights, and we're at this guy's house. His name is Brandon Dixon. I still remember this guy. I don't know where he is today. I have no idea. Maybe he became Catholic. He's watching your show.
Right on.
If you are, you got to call me. So I remember the Bible study was at his house. We were studying the Gospel of John, and we arrived at John chapter 6. And I remember going around, we read the verses and had the discussion, and what do you think? And what do you think? And I remember kind of these Protestant guys, like, y'all are like doing backflips to try to explain this, and I had enough Catholic upbringing to know Jesus is talking about the Eucharist. And, I kind of timidly raised my hand in the group, and it's like, guys, I think you guys know, but I'm Catholic, and I just gave my best explanation I possibly could. It's probably terrible, but college level apologist, trying to do my best to explain the Eucharist. And they were all very respectful, and there was no fight at all. But after the small group was over, Brandon, the guy who was leading it, kind of came over and, in a very genuine question, kind of put his arm around me and said, "Why are you Catholic?" It was just the simplest question. And me, a 20-year-old man, I didn't have an answer. I was just dumbstruck. And I mean, all the things racing through my head were, because my parents are Catholic, it was like the best I had, and I realized that was like, that's super great answer if you're 10. But when you're, if you don't know anything about your faith, to say why what if my parents were Muslim, or what if they were Buddhists or atheists, or would that be good enough? And so it was shocking how much that question kind of rocked. And I never went back to the growth group after that. Like it's not that I was like opposed to what they were doing, but I was on a mission. Like I had to find what is going on with my faith. And I realized I'd probably been, even considering leaving the church, or, it was a defining moment. So I'd say faith journey, that was a huge one. And so I started reading apologetics books. I started at the Eucharist. That's probably the main thing, is that I said, look, God, I love you. I know I love Jesus. Like I've always, I had really great experiences. And I went to a summer camp in high school that was just wonderful. And I knew I loved the Lord. But I had a lot of confusion about the Catholic Church too. But it was very clear to me that if you love Jesus and the Eucharist is real, if those two things are true, then you have to be Catholic. It's just, and so that's kind of where I ended up. And then I just threw myself into St. Mary's Student Center at Texas A&M, and I started singing in the choir and going to every retreat they had, and I got very involved, and my Catholic faith really, the Lord blessed me deeply through being at St. Mary's, and to the extent that I discerned the priesthood. And after college, I went off and did what's called NET Ministries. If anyone's ever heard of NET, it's a retreat-based ministry. I did that for a year down in Australia. That was 2004. I lived in Australia for all of 2004. Came back to the States. This is sort of moving on from the faith journey of version 3, probably at this point. I thought, I did NET because I thought perhaps I want to work in the church. I might want to have a life of ministry, or, kind of priesthood, probably not for me, but maybe I want to be a youth minister, or these other array of positions that you can do, or just being an evangelist or something. I don't know.
Sure.
After a year of NET, it was clear that I don't want to work. I don't want to work for the church. I don't want to work in the church, I guess is a way to say it. I don't want to have a job at the church. I missed commerce, really. I mean, you do a whole year of youth ministry, and you're kind of used to working, or you're used to, I would mow grass when I was a kid, and I liked the business space, just enjoyed doing that kind of thing, fixing cars. I was a mechanic for a while. So I missed that a lot, and I couldn't make it make sense. So I came back to the United States, started looking for careers. I had gotten this degree in forestry when I was at Texas A&M, but I never really practiced it. A little bit up in Montana. Got back from Australia and kind of waffled a little bit. And I went to the pastor at our church, that St. Teresa's still. I went back to St. Teresa's, where I grew up, and did some spiritual direction with the pastor. And I had some dumb ideas of stuff I wanted to do. It was really kind of funny. It's another story, but the spiritual direction he gave me was was very direct. He was an awesome Father Bart Reynolds, a great guy.
I know Father Reynolds, actually. I do.
Oh, yeah.
I've met Father Reynolds.
Yeah.
I have family. Well, this. I have family in Sugar Land, Texas, and so St. Teresa's, the classical school. All these things are very familiar. One of my best friends was a tourism marketing guy at College Station. Actually, he left after he left Calgary. So there's a little bit of a connection to your world.
Fantastic. So Father Reynolds, I sat down with him, and he reached over his shoulder in our discussion and handed me a copy of Saint Josemaria Escriva's The Way. And I started reading that in 2005, 2006. And this is before I had even started the business. So I was kind of just picking at this little book, this little small little phrases and exhortations and aspirations that Saint Josemaria would write. And I really liked how he thought, he's like manly and very, very direct, and I liked it. And so the life of work and being just an ordinary Catholic in the middle of the world, and I just really liked it a lot. And I didn't get straight away into anything like that. It took me years later I went on a retreat at a place called Feather Rock in Schulenburg, Texas. Went on a retreat. This was like 2016, which probably brings my faith journey up to the current era. I went on a retreat out there, and it just felt like home, and the guys that I met there, they're professionals here in town, and they're serious men who are very, very dedicated to their professional formation and doing their work the best they possibly can, and offering their work to God. And so I've kind of been doing that since 2016, and just trying to run my tree trimming business to the best of my ability, and offering, little prayers just throughout the day, all day long, trying to, send an email with the most love possible, or talk to an employee with the greatest attention I can give them, with a lot of human virtue. So that's kind of the whole story of my faith.
Well, it's it's very interesting to hear it, Grant, because there's so many threads I could pick up, and we will get to in a few seconds here your business story. But on the, I'm actually thinking of asking you two or three things. One is on the scriptural studies that, and I've experienced this too with friends of mine who are not Catholics, but who are, dedicated Christians, and they have Bible study at their workplace, let's say. And I also have noted that people will, authority, in the Catholic faith, we have authority to help us interpret the scripture. And I used to always notice that people would do backflips, like you say, gymnastics, to try to explain something or to give their own personal explanation of scripture. Right. And I always found that actually dangerous, because you can go off on a tangent. So I guess it's more of a comment than anything else. But I was taken by that powerful moment, that pivotal moment. Why are you Catholic? That's an interesting thing. If someone asked you that today, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but what would you say? Just, for the sake of our audience, what would be the answer of a mature man running a business now, and you have a family and so on, I presume? And so, what would you say?
I would it's true. That's probably the first thing I would say.
Yes.
The wealth of grace available in the sacraments. That's got to be number one for me. Not leaving out the depth of wisdom and historical context that you can bring. You're talking about the teaching magisterium of the church. There's saints upon saints that you could look to for good advice on particular things, authority, but mostly the sacraments, man. I think I even talk, we have a lot of Christians here at the company, and we discuss things openly. And if you're just driving, we don't have a lot of structured, or it's the Tuesday afternoon Bible study at the Urban Foresters. It's very friendly and organic. But I've talked with some of the employees before about even their lamentations of they can see that their own churches just break apart every time they have a fight. Like, hey, I don't agree with you. Okay, well, now it's Bob's church and Jason's church, and I don't like that. So that's my main thing.
I see that. Anecdotally, I fly to Texas to see my family from Canada, where I am currently. And of course, our long run plan is to be all together in Texas at some point. But I remember on a couple of road trips driving from Calgary to Sugar Land.
That's a long way.
It's a long way. It's a 3-day drive. And of course, I love driving and I love sports cars. So in those days, it was kind of even now, it would be a lot of fun. But I remember one particular vividly. I was driving from Calgary. I overnighted in Amarillo. So I was there overnight. And then the next day I was heading for Sugar Land. And my first comment is that it was, I drove all day long that third day, and I was still in Texas. You know what I mean? Like that's just in case anybody has the geography lessons. It takes you a whole day to drive from Amarillo to Sugar Land, and I'm driving, a sports car, so I'm not dawdling along. But here's my point. every little village, every little town, every little corner, there's a little building. Some of them couldn't be more than a size of a room, and they were so-and-so church. You know, they had a little cross on top and they had a little church. So that's a memory of driving into Texas. And so when you talk about splitting apart and all of that, and we talked authority a second ago, it's just a profound point to me that there's so many denominations around, and your friends really realize it.
Yeah, it's a sad thing, you know.
Yeah. So there you are. You started this business. You have a degree. You're a specialist in the area, and so why did you start the business, and what does it do? What's your business model?
Yeah. So the first, let me address that first. Like, my degree is in forestry, which is, for the audience, you probably know, but the wood and paper products industry is, you know, a huge business, right? And so foresters are people who manage forests in rural areas, right? They manage trees to be harvested. It's like farming, but on a 50-year or 30-year crop rotation instead of every year you plant the corn and you harvest the corn, right? So it's a long-term farmer. And I got a degree in that. Yeah. So, but I have never practiced forestry ever.
I see.
Like many people with their degrees. So what happened was, in my story of coming back to Houston looking for work, you know, I was a professional, if you want to call it a professional. I was a missionary, but I was a professional evangelist, right? I mean, if you want to use crass terms, I was a salesperson, right? I was selling the gospel, right?
Yes.
And so I had a knack for sales. I just like visiting with people and seeing how they're doing, and do you need anything, you know? And that's what youth ministry basically is, especially if you're doing apostolic youth ministry, like trying to go out and get kids. So when I got back to town, I thought, well, I don't want to move to the sticks. You know, I was unmarried at the time. Wasn't married. I didn't want to move to some podunk town in the middle of the woods. You know, probably not going to find a wife there. So I wanted to stay in the city where there was people, and I started working as a car salesman, which was fun. I also love cars. I'm more of a 4x4 guy, but I love cars. I love fixing cars and working on cars. I've had a few sports cars, but yeah, selling cars was not like, I didn't want to do that. It was just almost like a joke, so I could say like, "Hey, I was a car salesman once," you know. But after a couple months, I was pretty good at it, but I didn't want to do that for a living.
So used cars too, by the way, right? Used cars.
Yeah, I was a used car. Well, I was at a Ford dealership, so I could sell both, right? I sold both. Like, but it's just better storytelling if I was a used car salesman.
I know, it's great. I love it. It's a great part of the Catholic journey.
I knew it. I knew there was something about you. No, so I was, you know, I'm not going to sell cars for a living. I didn't want to do that. So I remember calling this family friend named Nathan. He had a landscaping company. I was like, "Nathan, I don't want to sell cars anymore. Can I literally asked the guy if I could just work a weed eater for him or something." And he said, "Grant, come on, you got a degree. Let me think about it. I probably know some people you could go talk to." That's where I got introduced to the field of arboriculture and urban forestry, and which is a fancy word for tree trimmer, right? It was I became a tree trimmer. But I was a tree trimming services salesman, right? So
I see. Yes.
I went to work for this company that had a tree service. They had 5-7 tree crews or whatever, but good sized tree service business in Houston. And my job was to go network with and interact with people in the multifamily housing industry. So I joined the Houston Apartment Association. I joined some of the other commercial real estate trade associations, and I would go to their networking events and cold call them or try to meet them or take them golfing. Just any outside sales rep ever. It's the same job. You just, whatever field you're selling. I sold tree services. And a part of my selling of tree services, it was helpful for me to become a certified arborist, which with my background and trees and biology, I was able to fast track that testing process and became a certified arborist. So I worked for this guy. So that kind of answers the question, what does the business do? I hadn't started the business yet, but I'm doing the same thing now that I was doing then. So it's a tree service business. Very, very simple. We trim trees, we cut dead trees down. Not much to it. I worked for that company for 5 years, from 2005 to 2010, at which point they sold the business. The owners sold out to a private equity group based in New Jersey. And as so often happens, a mom and pop kind of turned into reporting jungle, right? They run reports on everything.
Quarterly.
And I get it. Now I get it. I own a company now. I'm like, I want reports on everything. I am the new private equity guy. Yes. But as a 25-year-old, I was a little immature. Maybe I was older. I was probably 30 when the buyout happened. I didn't take well to it. I didn't handle it well, in all honesty, just being transparent. Like I was probably kind of a little arrogant with that, with the buyout. I think what was particularly hurtful, just to be honest, is like some of the other employees knew about it because they were kind of insiders with the boss, the guy who sold the business. So they knew it was coming and I didn't. And you show up for people who've had this experience, you don't know. I mean, you come to work one day and it's not the company anymore. It's this other company.
Yeah.
And they're all telling you things like, it's not going to change and it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Don't worry. And like, they should have just said, everything's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to be totally different.
This is the truth of it.
Yeah. That's, and so that soured me to the new management. And it was just like this, they wanted me to sign a no compete and I didn't want to sign it. And I didn't know why. What is all this hoity toity? It was perfectly described, mom and pop to corporate America overnight. And I didn't like it. I didn't like how they, that's enough. I didn't like it. So I started really soul searching, like, what am I going to do? And thought about just completely changing careers. I'm a sales guy. I can sell anything, right? Or that's what I thought. And it's probably not true, but that's what I thought. I was really gung ho back then. I thought I could do anything. And it really just kind of came around to the fact that I was a pretty good arborist and I had a deep network, and without breaking any promises or no competes or anything, that my customers would probably find me, and that I could keep my family safe. And that was really my highest aim, was I got to get out of this environment. I don't like the new outfit. I'm still young enough to do physical labor if I had to, 30 years old, like no problem, and so here we go. Like, so I got married in 2010. I quit my job in 2010. I started a business 2010. We got pregnant in 2010. We moved. Like 2010 was an insane year.
Yeah. Memorable, shall we say.
Yeah, very memorable. I think I'm still tired from 2010. I'm like, I'm still trying to catch up, from that exhausting experience. But that's how it happened. I never would have started a tree service. I was, at the time back then, I was trying to buy real estate, and I had maybe 3 or 4 rental houses, and I thought that was going to be, I'm going to sell tree work for my day job and then build up wealth with this real estate. But after I started the tree service, I sold all the real estate and this thing took off. So that's kind of how it got started. And like I said, we provide tree services for mostly commercial customers. Last year we launched a residential division. So we'll trim the tree at your house, any tree work anywhere, pretty much in Houston. Well, I mean, all of the greater Houston area, all of the greater Dallas and Fort Worth area, from a commercial standpoint. In Dallas, we're only commercial because we're just getting going there. And then we also go into the Austin and San Antonio markets for kind of select clients who come to us and just say, hey, look, we want you to do all of our trees, all over the state.
I see. Yeah. So custom contracts or just specific clients. You're not marketing heavily into those two.
No,
cities.
we don't have. Yeah, we in Austin and San Antonio we have to travel. into those markets, which is fine. It's not a high margin exercise for the business, but it does keep those marketplaces warm, because we do plan to expand all the way through the state. Brick and mortar have entrenched operations in all of those places, but Dallas and Houston are the two main hubs now. And Houston much more than Dallas. We're 1/6 the size in Dallas that we are in Houston.
I see. So Grant, so now we're talking about your business, and we see how you came to be running this business. Let's talk about the Catholic component of it. At the Catholic CEO, we talk about creating a Catholic economy, and that we should be very successful in business and very good. We should be sharp in business, but we should also be Catholic. Let's talk about how does that work in your business? Is there a Catholic business here? Is there a Catholic way to run your business? Do you face, conflict sometimes between business pursuits and the Catholic faith? That whole, what do you think about that whole dilemma?
Yeah, I do think a lot about that. So the way that we're currently doing it is by accentuating or focusing on the attainment of human virtue. And what I mean by that is we try to help our employees be more courageous, more just, more temperate, have more prudent. Those cardinal virtues, and as you know, those are they're not exclusively Christian concepts. Those are pre-Christian ideas.
Yeah, there's a natural law component.
Yeah, there's a natural law there, and so, and that's a lot of like. So why focus on just the human virtues, right? Why not just have, why not put a crucifix in every room and have a prayer before every meeting, which I'm not saying we don't do, right? One thing I should mention that's maybe relevant to the interview is that last year I placed a president and a leadership team completely in control of the urban foresters. So I do not interact daily with the staff, not even weekly. I don't attend the weekly tactical meeting where they pull down numbers and look at metrics. I'm trying to expand the business. And so by doing so, elevating out of the day-to-day management, I've made room for new leaders to come up. And so if it seems like, well, this guy doesn't even know what his company's doing, it's like, I've selected these men because they're brethren of mine, and I trust that they believe in the mission of the business. So but make no mistake about it, the company exists. The reason it is here is to make the people here holy. I mean, it doesn't. You could boil that down and say, well, whoa, this is a for-profit operation here. What do you mean? Well, yeah. So in order for us to help people pursue holiness, we have to return reasonable. We have to have a reasonable return to the shareholders' investments. And I'm the 90% shareholder, and there's a few other guys, but the principle, right? That why does any firm exist? Well, I mean, we could talk about that, but going back to your question, like, what is it that makes the urban foresters not just any other tree service? It's basically that we believe that every member of the leadership team, which I think there's probably 6 guys on that team now. There's a head of marketing, there's a couple of sales type guys, project management, operations, and then Jason Jesko is the president of the business. They all deeply believe in the mission of the business it's through our ordinary lives, it's through the actions that we take, it's through our behaviors that we demonstrate our faith. And so I wouldn't say that there are, again, right? Like, are they having a breakout session once a day for prayer and a rosary? Like, probably not. but I know that those men are offering their day in sacrifice for their co-workers and for the Lord himself. So that's kind of like my main vision here. And the vision goes hand in hand with good business practice. So good commercial business practice, like, hey, would you want your employees to show up on time? Yes. Punctuality is a human virtue.
It is. It's a promise.
Would you want it? It's like it's an exercise of justice, I suppose. You owe that guy his time if you told him you'd show up at this time. Sincerity is a virtue. Do your employees openly tell you the truth, about what's going on a job site? Or it really boils down to very, very, very simple. I mean, again, we're a tree trimming company, right? And I don't want to make light of that. It's actually fairly difficult to do this well.
Sure.
But it's not a very high-minded business. It's down to earth. It's very humble. Humility. There you go. That's one of our core values of humility. Like, does the leadership team know themselves? Do they really know how God made them? Are they self-aware? Do they have there was a practice for several years. The team adopted kind of a cultural practice of doing an examine every afternoon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was just sort of part of the team's behavior. Like, how did I do today? Thank you, God. And what did I not do so good? And help me do that better. So it's hard for me to put my finger on, it's a Catholic company because we all go to mass together every day. That's definitely not happening, right? Half the team is not Catholic, and so, but I would say, as a guiding principle, we believe that, again, respecting someone's freedom as well, right? There's a kind of this is like kind of a personal, maybe a personal example. I'm the boss. I'm the el dueño, like for the Spanish speaking guys, el jefe.
Yeah. See.
Now, if I go out there and smack some, foreman on the shoulder and be like, hey, buddy, I'm going to mass. So you gonna come to mass? That's a wonderful practice. I'm not discouraging at all, but it also does puts the weight of my position upon that man, where I would prefer to be in a relationship of friendship to someone when I begin my apostolic endeavors with them. And so that's what I'm trying to cultivate within the business, is a core group of men who are driving each other towards virtue, towards human virtue, to being what a human should be. In that environment of growth and human virtue, I firmly believe that the Holy Spirit will bless that endeavor, and that the seed of faith will be given by the Holy Spirit. Like, I can't make you holy, even though the business states that it exists to make the laborer holy. It's that partnership between the human and the divine. And I'm sorry if that's a wishy-washy answer about what makes your business Catholic, but and that's probably born out of my own personal spirituality. There are other people who are far more, say you have a spirituality of like a Benedictine or something, like a preacher, or that's not me. I want to know you as a person and have a personal friendship with you, and then I'm doing apostolate with you after there's confidence and friendship there.
Relation, this is it's a good answer, in the sense that, I mean, I don't know what the answer exactly should be, but let's just say it's a good. I'll tell you why. It resonates with me. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, started a family business, and I was part of it in the early days when he was alive, and when my father and my uncle were alive. But his stated purpose was to keep the family together. It wasn't to build wealth or income or security, although that came. But he used to say to us, I'm third generation in that business, let's say, and I'm in my early 20s, and he would say to us, I want this business for all of us to participate in, to keep us together. So he was talking about family unity, and that was something. And he was he was an immigrant from Poland, so he came to his brother came to the U.S., he came to Canada, and so that's the beginning of the story. But his motivation, just like yours, draws from your wish to have a personal relationship with somebody before you start evangelizing in a direct way, let's say, and then you're going to let the Holy Spirit work. His whole thing was to keep the family together in unity, which was, it's interesting. So the richness of the Catholic faith allows these and many other approaches, I guess. So this is interesting because you've got a team of people, many not Catholics, some Catholics. You don't necessarily have formal, Catholic practices in the business, but in your search for human virtue, you're creating a Catholic culture, I guess you could say, because you're fostering human virtue. And the search for virtue is not a trivial matter too. I mean, as we know, this is a fundamental need for all of us. And so, and the reason I told you that story about my grandfather, because there was some resistance here and there, you could say, within and without. Not everybody bought into that. And so do all of your, this is a detailed question, I'm sure, but do your people respect this, and do they know that this is the culture of your business?
That's a challenging question, right?
Yeah.
So that actually goes back to even my own journey within the business, right? I didn't start this thing day one in 2010 saying, why does it exist?
The existential search for
I was
meaning.
Like, I hate where I'm working. I could probably make some money and let's go. Like, let's not, don't bankrupt your family. Right. I mean, that's where I started. It's not high-minded at all.
Yeah. You didn't do strategic planning session.
No, you just go. I had a pickup truck and I rented a trailer. I mean, that was literally how we started. Even have my own equipment. I rented it. Mm-hmm. And in about 2016, I mentioned earlier, I went to Feather Rock on that retreat. Mm-hmm. Father Reynolds gave me a copy of The Way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In 2016, I also read another book by Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage. Mm-hmm. And in The Advantage, Pat lays out that your business needs to have a purpose. Why does it exist? And you immediately know, even if you're not a business owner, that if the company exists to make a profit, like, it's not good enough, man. Yeah. Nobody wants to go work somewhere where that's the only reason. And you'll hear quite a few people state that that's why companies exist. But then you can challenge their thinking and say, okay, well, is it okay to steal our products and then sell them? Because that would be more profitable. Is it okay to, how about prostitution? How do you feel about that? What about child trafficking? That would be profitable. And they're like, oh, no. Like,
yeah, right.
Well, then, okay, well, your philosophy sucks. Sorry, but it's terrible. That's not why the business exists. It's one condition of it continuing to exist, but it's not why. Yeah. And so you'll hear all these mission statements and purpose statements. We exist to bring the best quality products. It's like, okay. And so I really wanted to go big. Like, why does it exist? What am I doing? And granted, this is 2016. I'd been operating for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've been reading Saint Josemaria, right? And he's all about holiness and the ordinary life. And it just came to me, like, the business exists so that all of you will get holy. My purpose in life is to get my wife and my kids to heaven. Yes. And then all of you are next. Yeah. That's why, in a sense, it's why I exist. Mm-hmm. To worship the Lord and bring people along to the blessed life. I mean, life is beautiful and wonderful, and I want you all to be a part of it. And so a lot of that ideal, and Pat, if you've ever read The Advantage, he encourages you to be just insanely idealistic with this purpose statement. And then he takes you through a process of boiling it down to practical things. But yeah, I mean, that's why it's here, and I thought of an idea, an example, for this virtue and sharing the faith through friendship and confidence. When I was, we do offsites, right? Like once a quarter, we'll get offsite with the leadership team. This was when I was leading the leadership team. I've taken a step kind of back. I'm starting some other enterprises, but when I was leading that leadership team, we would absolutely, I would encourage, hey, let's say a prayer before we're going to pray before we go into this decision making. And then we'd kind of do an evening prayer after we're done. But it wasn't like entrenched or it's not like they had to, but it's just I'm leading it, so we're going to pray. And the one way I shared my faith, our previous accountant was on that retreat, and he was a Baptist. And I said, Ted, if you don't mind, I would like to pray a rosary for tonight's evening prayer. And I took out a rosary and I said, this is what it is. It's what it looks like. It has these beads, and there's mysteries. So, I just took him through and helped him to understand meditative mental prayer.
Yes.
Combined with a vocal aspiration. And he prayed a rosary with us, right? He doesn't pray rosaries now. He's not Catholic now, but when else is this guy ever going to get exposed to our Blessed Mother and the rosary unless you do it? Yeah. And so I think maybe that captures kind of the Catholicity of the company. Is the people who are Catholic are simply Catholic in the company. But we probably stop a little short of Catholicizing maybe the meeting structures, or it's a very human sharing of the gospel, or human sharing of our faith. And I don't mandate or dictate how any given Catholic does that, but I do hear stories about it happening, right? Like Tanner, people have been saying like, hey, he's kind of considering joining the church, and he's just the guy that answers the phone. I'm starting to call him out by name on the podcast, but I've heard that, that people are sharing their faith, and that makes me feel good that almost like the environment that the company creates is one in where apostolate is welcome, but the environment itself isn't doing the evangelizing. It's the people, it's the yeast in the bread that causes it to rise.
This is it's subtle, but it's interesting, and there's again so many nuances to what you've just said. For example, Patrick Lencioni, I used to run CEO peer groups. We now have in the Catholic CEO, our model is the St. Joseph Forum, which would be for groups of up to a dozen leaders of businesses working together to solve business problems in a Catholic context. But when I was running these kind of groups for secular organizations, including a large, well-known one in the US, Patrick would come and he would speak. And so he inspired, actually, you could say, a whole generation of business leaders to adopt this kind of, what's the purpose of why are you doing this? Right. So I like what you said, but what comes to my mind is that we are all instruments. And so you're using your natural talent and ability of being, if I could label you, which I don't want to do, but you're sort of a people guy. You're sales oriented. So you like to have relationships with people. You like to get to know them and understand what their needs are. And that's how you conclude a business transaction. That it seems to me, I'm oversimplifying you, of course, but if you do that, what happens then is that you're modeling that behavior for your team. And when they people respect this in a human sense, I think. If you say, let's be on time, if we promise a customer Tuesday at 2:00, let's be there at Tuesday at 2:00, or, have a really good reason and tell them about it, not just don't show, So this is good. And so you've got this culture, hesitate to use that famous word of let's have a company culture now, but you must have a company culture then that has grown. And so let's try something else here for a few minutes. What's different then about the urban foresters compared to, let's say, your competition? And I don't want to be specific, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
What's the difference between you and some other secular business, never mind just your competitors?
Yeah, no, that's pretty, you're talking about strategic differentiation here, right? Like, what is it that's one of the reasons I picked the tree service business and that I stayed in it actually, is that there aren't really any operational strategic differentiators. for what I do.
Yeah.
And what I mean, to boil that down, I buy the same trucks as my competitor, same chainsaws, same pruning methods. There's no like there's very clearly defined pruning methods that an arborist does. So I'm even if you want to categorize humans this way, I don't like the way it sounds, but my labor pool, right? I'm buying the same labor that my competitors are, right? They could steal one of my employees for $1 more per hour, right? So what is the real, what's different here? And it goes back to that pursuit of goodness, that pursuit of virtue. We accentuate that. We tell, that becomes what's different about us, is that we want down to the laborer level, we want them to see and to believe and to act as though they are here to become better men. Period. You're the best paid. Yes, you are the best paid tree service workers in the city. Yes.
Yeah.
We even structure their pay, right? So this is an exercise in virtue. We structure the foremans and the climbers and the ground hands. We structure their pay in such a way that their hourly pay rate is below market. So, and we don't hide that. So you're going to make $20 an hour here, but you could make 25 over there. However, once a month, we will go over the financials of the business with you and your team and teach you how to be more productive at work. And you will earn above that $5 to $6 an hour mark in a monthly bonus if you'll hit these numbers for us. That's training in virtue, training in fortitude, prudence, like good decision making. We don't want to create a company where we put in place infrastructure that's costly, by the way. You put in place a costly infrastructure of supervision and oversight, GPS on the truck. We have GPS on the trucks from a safety standpoint, but watching their every move.
Yeah, you're not.
Slapping their hand when you stop too long at the store, or this very paternalistic environment that doesn't cause any growth at all, just causes fear. So we're trying to put in place little learning experiences and then giving those men a stake in the outcome, right? And it's healing. It has the potential to heal some of these broken relationships between labor and capital, right? Like this gets back to like rerum novarum and like some of the deep social teachings of the church. But we're trying to do it. And we're actually trying to do this in the middle of the world, like trying to turn a profit. It's not easy. I mean, a lot of that worker employer tension is real. But I forgot what your question was, Henry.
Well,
I get so excited about this stuff.
It is exciting, and I'm I don't remember what my question was either, actually. But no, seriously, the what we're talking about here is it's the classic imperative in business. We say this in the Catholic CEO, you can be Catholic and successful in business. You have to run your business prudently. You have to be smart. You can't let it go broke. You can't run out of cash. You have to do all the right things, but you can motivate people to behave differently. And this is probably the more fundamental point that maybe you're making, is that you don't set in place, like you say, a layer of costly infrastructure to supervise and to monitor. Because if you do that, you'll get that culture. That's what you'll get. People will behave, in accordance with that. But if you put in place incentives to teach people how to make more money and to be more responsible with the resources and all of that, I'm all over that. I love that, Grant, that you've said that.
Yeah, so that's what your question was. Yeah, strategic differentiation. And that's what I'd say. I'm very attracted to business. I want to continue to grow this company and maybe other ones. But I'm always only attracted. It's funny, like I'm not attracted to app development or web design, or they don't excite me. I love dirty, rough, outdoor businesses that are labor intensive. And some of my colleagues that are not in my industry look at me and go, "You're crazy." They're trying to figure out how to get rid of employees. They're trying to figure out how to automate this or that thing. I'm like, no, I want more people, because going back to the mission is to make souls go to heaven.
Yeah.
Well, how can I do that if I'm
discarding those souls?
Discarding
you
more
want them,
souls. Yeah.
you want
So
to
I'm attracted to businesses that are unlikely to be automated anytime in the next century. And tree climbing and tree removal is not likely to be automated. Appliance repair or landscaping is just not going to happen. I mean, it's the tasks are too intricate, and the human interactions are too intricate as well. So that's but if you're in the business of high labor intensity, lots and lots of people, I mean, it only makes sense to make those people virtuous and then advertise that that's what we do here. There's a whole culture like of kind of fitness gurus and self-help this and that, and that's to me speaks to something transcendent. Like the people know, the people who are ate up with that kind of hustle culture or got my side gig or just improvement culture in general, and I think they have a longing for the ineffable. They are looking for God. And in that milieu of all that, like I'm not a church, right? I'm not a youth ministry, or I'm none of those things. We are a for-profit company, but work itself is, I heard a quote the other day, it was like, work is it's the means and the environment by which you practice your highest ideals. I mean, I like to say, if you're not going to get, if you're not going to get holy, like if your work is drudgery, or your work is miserable, or your work, God forbid, is making you vicious and seeding vice in your life, man, you're in trouble, dude. You can't go to Sunday mass enough to make up for 5-6 days a week of unholy behavior. And so you have to find a way, in my opinion, to sanctify your ordinary life. You have to find a way to find Jesus. And I was thinking of praying the rosary today, thinking about the finding Jesus in the temple, right? And I was saying, Jesus, let me find you here, because I'm not in a temple. I'm in a tree office. There's a barn behind me with a bunch of trucks in it. Like, let me find you here, Lord, because you have to come to me, because this is where I am. You planted me here. So that idea of capturing people's imagination, or capturing their passion for growth, just in a human sense, wanting to become a better person, wanting to become wealthy, wanting to become a great tree worker or a great plumber or whatever, and then taking that energy and showing them, yes, you do want to be a great plumber, and you will be a great plumber, but there's even more. There's heaven, where it's heaven is forever getting better. It's just getting better forever and ever. It's always getting better.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So, Grant, it's hard to believe we've been talking for about an hour already, and so the time has really flown here. I've got my second last question to you.
Sure.
And what my last question is. I already told you what it's going to be, but here's my second last question. So you have portrayed rather eloquently, I'd say, the purpose of your business and your approach and your beliefs. If I were to ask you, though, just looking over the whole span of your life, how did it happen? Like how did you get to know this all and to do this in practice now? If I asked you to summarize that, what's the answer? Where did this all come from?
Man, we need another hour, Henry.
I know. It's a trick, isn't it? Sorry, we'll have to come back sometime and do this again. We will.
Gosh, I mean, it's the goodness of God. It's just the hand of the Holy Spirit somehow has drawn me along, but I mean, practically, in a temporal way, like, how did I get all this? Like, a lot of it, I have to say, is my upbringing. I've got a lot of workers. I'll boil this down to two things just because I know you're short on time. I've got a lot of workers in my family. Both my paternal and my maternal grandfathers were just working guys. My papa Abear was a sharecropper in South Louisiana. And then when that wasn't paying the bills, he became a door-to-door insurance salesman. I mean, talk about, and to poor communities, you know, I mean, he was
talk about a pivot, right?
Yeah, hard working man. I remember Papa Aber coming to my house in Richmond when I was a kid. He had to be in his 60s. And they drove to our house from Louisiana. He brought a shovel in his car, brought a shovel, and because my mom or dad had said we're having drainage problems at the house. That man dug ditches all over the yard. You know, his shovel was like whittled down to this, you know, it was like his special shovel. So just hardworking people. My Papa Crowell, he had polio during, you know, he had polio as a kid and couldn't go to the World War II, but worked in like a shell manufacturing facility. And I remember Papa Crowell in his workshop as a kid. When I was a little kid, he'd be out there smoking cigarettes on crutches, crutching around and fixing everything. He could fix a refrigerator. He would recane furniture, you know, cane type furniture.
Sure, yeah.
He could fix anything. And they're just working people. And my dad, same way. I mean, when we were, you know, so work, I guess is what I'm saying. Work has always kind of been a hallmark of the Crowell family. Like we all get together, you know, hey mom, what do you want for Mother's Day? Oh, come over here and help us rake the yard, you know, like we're all out there, all the kids out there fixing the yard, you know, for mom on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And then great. The second part, really I think finding the spirituality of Opus Dei and San Josemaria and reading his writings and meeting those men, you know, who are brothers of mine now. That's a huge part of it. Bringing your own spirituality to your or whether you're a Franciscan type person or you're a, you know, Jesuit type spirituality. You meet people in the Catholic world, right? You're like lay Carmelites, and it's great. It's like all these cousins, but like bringing that spirituality to life in your daily work has been that really has brought it to another level for me. Where at this point, as a tree trimmer, Henry, I mean, the money component for me and my family, it's like, dude, I never wanted to make, if you could make $100,000 as a tree trimmer, you know, it's just like you made it, right? And that happened, and I kind of had to hit a patch there. I didn't know, what am I doing? You know, like why grow? You know, if you kind of hit your goals and you kind of run out of steam, but now, no, I mean, we're just going to keep going, but not for personal gain. It's all for a transcendent reason now.
Yeah. Well, like we said, that's another 1 hour type of discussion, which we will do. We'll have to continue this discussion, but let's do let's wrap it up for today. And I'm very grateful. But so tell us, where do we find you? Where, you know, you got any events coming up? What are you know, what's you're selling, expanding, you're doing a lot of things.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that, I mean, obviously we're interested in your trees. You know, if people have trees anywhere in the Houston area, I mean, I'm talking Conroe to Galveston, Columbus to, you know, Winnie, I don't know. Anywhere in the Houston area, we can help you with your trees. Anywhere in the Dallas area, Dallas-Fort Worth, we can do commercial projects. That's apartment complexes, HOAs, big commercial buildings, industrial projects, tree trimming, that kind of stuff. But I tell you, more than repping the business or promoting the business, we're going to need people. We're going to need, you know, operations-minded folks, logistics people, fleet, heck, I mean, even workers. Like, there's a big movement in the labor force today to get back to your roots. You know, people sitting behind a computer all day. You know, you can make $70,000-$80,000 a year as a tree care foreman. You know, if you just want a job, you're an entry level worker, you're some kid out of college who you're watching this podcast, come talk to us. You know, we can teach you everything you need to know about arboriculture. Of course, we're going to need marketing and salespeople, business developers. I mean, all those kinds of roles. So more so than trying to find tree care customers, I think finding good people who are interested in a life of virtue and growing through your ordinary work, and dare I say, even attaining for holiness in your ordinary work, this is a place. This is a place to be. We want to meet people like that.
That's great. It's it's a tremendous opportunity you're offering, and so may God bless you and your works, Grant, and your whole family, and all of your employees, and your whole enterprise. And thanks again for being here today. This was really fantastic.
Enjoyable.
Yeah, we're going to do this again another time. So thanks again, Grant. So it's Henry Katarna, the Catholic CEO. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.